My drunk uncle ruined my graduation and exposed a family secret. Graduation day was supposed to be one of the best days of my life. My parents were there. My grandparents were there. Even my Uncle Rick showed up. That should have been my first warning. Uncle Rick had a reputation. Every family gathering ended the same way. Too much alcohol, loud arguments, and everyone pretending nothing happened the next day. For some reason, my mom thought he'd behave. He didn't. By the time the ceremony ended, Rick was already stumbling around the parking lot with a red plastic cup in his hand. My mom kept whispering, "Just ignore him." Oh, so I tried. We all went to a restaurant afterward. Everything was fine for about 20 minutes. Then Rick stood up. He tapped his fork against his glass. "Dad's speech," he yelled. The entire restaurant got quiet. My dad looked confused. Because Rick wasn't my dad. He wasn't even close. Rick started slurring his words. "I've been keeping this secret for 18 years. My mom instantly turned white. "Rick, sit down." But he kept talking. "No. They deserve to know." The whole table froze. I remember hearing a fork hit the floor somewhere behind us. Then Rick pointed at my dad. "You raised him like your own, even though everyone knows." "Rick!" My mom screamed. Too late. Everyone was staring. My heart was pounding. My dad looked furious. My grandparents looked terrified. And Rick? He looked proud of himself, like he'd just won an award. Then my dad stood up. For a second, I thought he was going to punch him. Instead, he quietly took Rick by the arm and dragged him outside. The restaurant exploded with whispers. I looked at my mom. She was crying. That's when I knew. Whatever Rick had been about to say, it wasn't a joke. The drive home was silent. Nobody spoke. Nobody even turned on the radio. That night, my parents sat me down, and for the first time in my life, they told me the truth. Turns out my biological father had left before I was born. The man I'd called Dad my entire life wasn't related to me by blood, but he'd chosen to raise me anyway. I sat there for a long time, trying to process everything. Finally, I asked him one question. "Why didn't you tell me?" He smiled and said, "Because being your dad was never the secret." A week later, Uncle Rick called to apologize. Apparently, he didn't even remember half of what happened. Nobody invited him to Thanksgiving that year. And honestly, nobody missed him.